Hey everybody, it's Elizabeth Losey, and I'm here today to talk to you about Marry Your Intuition. This is a new program I have. The very first iteration happened in March and April, and it was such a miraculous thing that I've been called to do it again. Over the summer, while the energies are kind of tricky, because we have summer solstice coming up in like a week and a half, and on the 21st, today's the 8th, and then eclipse season begins actually on the 17th, just before the summer solstice. So it's going to be a really interesting summer, and with lots of choice points. So this Marry Your Intuition, an initiatory journey into the divine feminine mystery, I think is going to be really useful for lots of people. It's only open to women, but what we do there is there's a deep bond of sisterhood created, as well as this class challenges me as a, hi Alina, this class challenges me as someone who was a professor for many years, trained as a professor, hi Tiffany, because when I trained as a professor, it was all about, okay, you set out your schedule in a syllabus, what you're going to be teaching every day. The students know what they're going to be reading or studying every day. That's not the case with Marry Your Intuition. In fact, I'm lucky if I know 5 minutes ahead of class time which general direction we're going to be going that day. So it's a super duper challenge for me, but the brilliance of it is that it's all channeled. It's all channeled. And so it's exactly what needs to come through for that exact group. And I use my shamanic drum to take us into the tent. My vision when I first got that I needed to do Marry Your Intuition this spring was that there was this Bedouin tent in an oasis, and this oasis was the oasis of the divine feminine wisdom. And so we had this tent, the sisterhood tent that we would go into, and I'm just beating on my shamanic drum, taking us into the tent, and magic ensues. It's quite amazing. Every time I'm amazed and in awe of what comes through, because it's exactly perfect. There's Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. I'm talking about Marry Your Intuition and this divine feminine initiatory journey into the mystery. This class is not a regular intuition class. Now, some of you may know, because you've been following me for a while, I know a few of you have, that I used to teach a program. This was really starting back in 2012, although it had a different name as of 2013. I called it Rock Your Intuition. And the last time I taught Rock Your Intuition was in January of 2016. And already in January of 2016, I was just like, oh my God, I cannot do this, because I had already begun my deep priestess training, and Rock Your Intuition was really mental. It was incredibly masculine, and it was all about speed and being in your head. And by that time, I had started to really slow down and drop out of my brain into my body. And so this program, Marry Your Intuition, is all about embodied intuition. It's all about, hi Nisla, Nisla's already in the class. So the embodied intuition piece is about knowing what your body is saying, which honestly was not available in Rock Your Intuition, because we were all kind of like skipping across the surface and going quickly and all mental and like shoot from the hip. And a lot of people learned a lot about how to connect to their intuitions with that program, but it has nothing to do with Marry Your Intuition, except it has a similar title. It features a 2-class-a-week format with a number of emails to kind of hold a super tight container. Those are the only 2 things that connect Rock Your Intuition with Marry Your Intuition. And so Marry Your Intuition it's a 10-class program over 5 weeks, 5.5 weeks really. because we have a holiday in there. The reason I was called, and I was resistant because I'm like, no, I want to teach this like in September. And my guys were like, remember how you married your intuition? We're telling you to do this now. And when I felt into it more deeply, I was like, oh, okay, now I see why this has to be. Not only does it have to do with the real sort of like dragging women off their thrones of sovereignty with the whole abortion ban thing going on around the world. I live in Georgia, so this is particularly in the air for me. You know, people right here are being told that they're not going to be able to like have the health care that they need. But really, the abortion bans are all about telling women that we don't have authority over our own bodies. So that self-authority is a question of sovereignty. So even if you don't consider yourself to be a queen, you're the queen of your realm, which includes your body and perhaps your house and maybe your kids if you have them. But you should at least be able to have the right of decision making over those pieces, right? So this is one of the reasons why Marry Your Intuition had to happen right now, because it's super clear to me that women, especially across the south of the US, are having to face these, it's as though someone is coming into our individual throne rooms and grabbing us, dragging us off our thrones and saying, no, you don't deserve to make decisions about yourself for whatever patriarchal bullshit reason. So this is why Marry Your Intuition had to happen now. That, and then compounded by the fact that the energies coming up later this month, just in another week, really, a week and 2 days, eclipse season starts with the Sagittarius full moon, and it starts with a bang, and it will be big going forward for the next 6 weeks after that. So over the next several months, there's a lot of kind of like crazy up and down energy. We've already seen with the Schumann resonance like 10 times higher than it typically is. It's hard to kind of be in our bodies. And so this embodied intuition piece is super important. Hey, Rebecca's here. Hi, Judy. My dog is wanting to come in, but I'm just going to let him scratch at the door. I hope you can't hear that. Let me just say a few things. And if you have questions about Marry Your Intuition, please do post them in the chat box. I can see them. I'll be able to answer your questions if you have any. So one of the things I wanted to say about Marry Your Intuition is so many, almost like 100% of the people, thank you. Oh, I'm glad to see you're here too. I didn't see you pop in, but that's fun. Amanda, one of the things about my tribe, my group of followers, is that we're all intuitive, right? And so it could be that there are a lot of you out there who are like, yeah, I'm intuitive. I don't really need Marry Your Intuition. And guess what? I'm a professional intuitive, and I have been for almost a decade, and I needed this. Back in March, when I did the first iteration of this program, it was like I melted down and was rebuilt. And because somehow, somewhere, I hadn't fully committed to the truth of my own body. The truth that wasn't coming in through my brain or messages from my higher self, but it was what was rising up from my womb. This massive truth that I'm still working out, but it just shifted everything. It was like put everything in a concrete tumbler or a tumble dryer or something like that. It was just like everything kind of got tumbled and spun around and melted and put back together differently. I can't believe the changes. It's just insane. And so I say to all the intuitives, and by the way, my last post, which I think I posted on Wednesday, I'll put the link in the comments section or up at the top later. My last post talked about the times at which I gave my power away to someone else, another woman, because I wanted to be shown the way. Now, I am a way shower. Thank you. I'm a way shower. Oh, Tamara's here. Hello. I'm a way shower, and I wanted to be shown the way. That's a fine line to walk, actually. And I think some of us always want to be shown the way, right? Like, tell me how to make the money. Tell me how to be the best me I can be. But the truth is, we are the only arbiters of that truth. Our bodies are what can tell us, and no one else can tell us that truth. Now, especially if you're in business, I like to call us magicpreneurs, right? Because we're like dealing with the different dimensions, and we go through portals all the time. We're constantly interrogating what's going on in a different, like a parallel universe. So magicpreneurs really, and I learned this the hard way. I invested, over $100,000, to be honest. I invested over $100,000 over several years in a high-end coaching situation, mastermind. And at the beginning it worked because I didn't know, I was a professor, so I didn't know how to build a business. And so at the beginning it was really good because I was gathering all this information of like 3D nuts and bolts kind of things. And that was really important. But once I reached a certain level, once I was able to afford the fancy mastermind, that's when it stopped working for me because I knew too much. I knew that, when my coach would say, do this, I would say, okay, even though I knew it wouldn't work. Oh, Heidi's here. Hello. So I spent a lot of years being really frustrated because I wanted to do it her way because it had started out that would work, doing it her way. But then once I had everything that I needed in place, I did not need her advice anymore. And in fact, this is true for everyone, not just people who are, professional intuitives like I am. Since the harmonic convergence, every eclipse season, even every Mercury retrograde, we keep getting these additional levels of intuitive capacity. And so, back in 2013, late 2013, I kept getting these hits in the Akashic Records like, oh, coaching is a dead industry. You have to stop calling yourself a coach. But I was still calling myself a spiritual business coach. I still had this fancy mastermind. At the beginning of January of 2014, that got taken down. I didn't do it on purpose. It was just like it dissolved before my very eyes. And I went from a really healthy monthly income to zero. And I'm like, okay, I would feel really bad, except that, having 7 people disappear all within 2 weeks, and just say like, I know my contract isn't up, but I have to leave anyway. Like that to me had the fingerprints of the universe all over it. So at least I could trust that there was a plan back there. And a few months later, I realized just how exhausted I had been. I loved every single one of those women. I loved the work that we did together. I did. And I thought I had hit the jackpot because I was doing soul work, my passion. And I was really helping these people, and they weren't just in the US either. We had people in Europe, and they would fly into Atlanta, and we would have these amazing weekends of like a conclave of intuitives. And I was really carrying all of their energies around, which wasn't healthy for me. And I didn't realize it because I loved them. I loved what we were doing. I didn't realize how much it was costing me physically. It really just burnt out my adrenals. So, but I never would have thought that like what I was doing, which I loved with people whom I loved, was going to be doing that to me. So the universe had to kind of shut that down and start me over, which was great in 2014. And then I came back. I left my mastermind because, of course, I had no way of paying for it anymore because all of my clients disappeared simultaneously, except for one. There was one who stayed 1 extra month until the end of her contract, and bless her. And it kept us in our house. But then after my income came back, then I was diving into priestess training, which today still feels totally aligned. I'm really glad I did it. And oh gosh, I felt it for the first time ever. ever, ever, ever. But so I was a student, and this is another tricky line to walk, right? I'm someone who knows a lot, and I have access to a lot of cosmic wisdom. And so I was tapping in already right when we started, because my mother, for better or for worse, she had a stroke 1 week, actually 6 days after our opening ceremony in the priestess group. And so in the opening ceremony, we had done a lot of work, and then there was the first temple was that Wednesday, and then Friday, my father didn't call. It was my aunt saying, hey, your dad isn't going to call you, but your mom had a stroke. It's pretty massive. You should get out there right now. Buy your ticket right now. So I left and I went, and 2 days after I got there, she had another incident where she nearly died. She had, they were putting in a peg, is this a gastric plug, basically, so that she could be fed directly into her stomach and not through her throat, so that she could get the capacity to swallow back and to speak. And so I had been working with a client outside on the grass, and I came back in, and when I heard that they were going to put this peg in, I was just like, and I blanched. I'm like, oh, very bad. And my dad was like, no, it's good. They say they do like 20 of these a day. It's totally safe, all that. I'm like, gosh, because my intuition just went like, ooh. And so the surgery took like 20 minutes. It was really super fast. And later that day, she had already had a cough, which I'm sure was about the feeding tube in her throat, but it was like rattling around in her chest. So my dad decided to stay with her that night. It was the first night that anyone had, stayed overnight in the hospital room. It was the first of many nights, actually. And what happened was that even though she was not in the ICU, but she was in a level of care that was much higher. There were 2 nurses for 4 rooms. And so lots of care. She was being monitored all over the place somehow. And I think it was because she needed to have this choice. Somehow she was bleeding internally, and no one figured it out until she just bottomed out. My sister and I had just driven back to the house, and we were talking to neighbors who were coming over to say hello. And my dad called, and he's like, you have to come back. She just died in my arms. And so they took her into the ICU because, of course, she had basically just died for the second time in 3 days. And so they took her into the ICU, and there were 20 medical professionals in there trying desperately to bring her back and make sure that she had enough blood pressure to survive the next several minutes. In the meantime, I sat down. I was called to sit down. And I became the chalice where all of this priestess wisdom. Meanwhile, I had been to 2 temples, an opening ritual experience and a single temple. And so this was soon after that, just days after that I started receiving all of this information from all of my past lifetimes as a priestess. So, and suddenly I knew what to do. She needed to have space cleared around her, energetic space, because of course there were tons of people hanging on her, right? All the nurses and the doctors, including her main ICU doctor, whose name was Dr. Seuss. You can't make that up. Everyone kind of glomming on her. My father, my sister, really wanting her to survive, and I just went into silence and stillness, and let everything that I needed to know about helping her come through. So I cleared the space. I made it really cool and quiet in there, and cleared space around her. I put lights at all, like candles at the 4 corners of the space. And I just said, okay, you've tried to die. You've really tried to die twice in the last several days. If you want to go, it's not going to be easy for the rest of us, but I want to make sure that if that's your decision, I want to make sure that we honor it. And so, I just took my own emotion out of it and was like, all right, you get to decide. And she decided to stay. I'll be seeing her in 2 weeks. So, I mean, she's paralyzed on one side and just do an amazing job with that. But I really just had to clear that space so that she could be in a place of choice. Because she had a hemorrhagic stroke. Normally people don't survive that. It typically happens in their sleep and they just don't wake up. And then her blood pressure went to 0 and she didn't have any blood to her brain. And I mean, it was like, okay, these are really legitimate attempts to leave the earth plane. And I wanted to make sure that she had the opportunity to make good on what appeared to me to be her desire. And so I knew right away that, like, being a priestess and owning that sort of that point of stillness and wisdom, not just for myself, but for other people, was really important. And thank you for the like, Stephanie, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, this is me getting really raw. I haven't actually spoken about this in public. It was big. And so I went deeper into the priestess world with a dear priestess mentor who had taken me through the first several months of the Mysterium. And so I went as deep as you could get, and I loved it. I could not believe how at home I felt. It was like the first time in, nearly 50 years that I was on the planet, I was at home. I felt like I had the community that I had always sort of felt was there, but had never super duper connected to. And I mean, I had lots of community in the academic world. I was one of them in that sense, except that I was also an intuitive. And, I never told people, never told people that my book got published as a monograph, which doesn't happen. It got published the very first time I approached a publisher. I walked up to her at a book fair at our main convention, and I said, hey, I have a manuscript about reader seduction and Violette Leduc, and I don't know if you'd like to talk to me about it, but the titles that you have here are very interesting. I have some of them at my house, so just let me know. And she's like, yes, I absolutely want that. Please send me your overview and a couple of chapters and we'll talk. It happened that quickly, just in a couple seconds. And of course there was a lot of work to do after that, but this was sort of a requirement of tenure, and everyone I knew had spent years agonizing over, like, because when you submit your work to one publishing house, you can't send it anywhere else until they send it back and say, no, thank you, or yes, but it's usually a no. So it usually takes years and effort and effort and effort. And, I was 2.5 years away from needing to have this because my tenure date was coming up. And and I thought I had been judging myself as dilly-dallying, like, okay, I must not want this very much. I don't know. But so really what I realized was that I wasn't procrastinating or dilly-dallying or shooting myself in the foot or any of the judgments that I had laid on me. I just knew the exact person to present it to, and it worked immediately. No effort, just there it is. And so there was that piece that I knew I was different from my colleagues in that sense, that I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, like, oh, you have to do this, you have to send it out 100 times and then, like chew on your fingernails and then self-publish in the end, because, no actual, at that time already, and this was in the year 2000, 2001, publishing houses, university presses weren't doing monographs anymore, even though tenure pretty much anywhere required a monograph. And so it was becoming this untenable situation, and I kind of skated through really easily, and I didn't want to tell anyone because I thought they would probably hate me. So here I am telling it, and I hope my tenured friends don't hate me now, or untenured friends more particularly. So intuition, I had this community, this academic community, but as soon as I left, to to go work with crystals and channel Akashic records, it was like everyone took a big step back. They did not, they thought maybe it was catching whatever I had, like the crazy, like, okay, she's giving up a guaranteed salary for life. She's really well known in her, in her field. Like, why would she be doing this? She must actually be certifiable. And so most of my friends disappeared. And so I had kind of lost that academic community, not everyone, but a lot. Hi, Michelle. Oh, look, another Atlanta person. So I was finding another community in the priestess world, and I loved it. Everyone there, oh, thank you. Everyone there was so sweet and really on the same wavelength as I was. And I went to my first live retreat in California, and it was amazing. I just can't even tell you. Every day was better than the last, and each day was like the peak experience of my life. And so it was like day after day after day after day of just like, wow, this can't get better than this. And then within a week, and so let me just back up and say, I was giving my power away. I know that my priestess mentor was saying, like, we're all sisters. There's no one else here is above anyone else. We're all sisters. That's a patriarchal construct, this hierarchy where someone has superior whatever, and then the underlings are below you. And so there was a lot of talk about, we're not a hierarchy, we're a circle where everyone is equal here, we're sisters. And then during that week, because Akashic Records was not something that people in the group knew about, they were asking me questions. We all lived in the same Airbnb house. And so at breakfast, they would ask me questions. And finally, they started saying, hey, it'd be fun to work together. And I thought, yeah, it would be. So I gave them a special sisterhood deal. And almost all of them took me up on it. And then, we all left on a Friday, and the next Thursday, my mentor had heard about this from someone else, and she took me down. Hi, Sharon. Sharon is also a Marry Your Intuition right now. So my priestess mentor, I don't know. I cannot say what happened. I don't know what she heard, but she told me that I was this master manipulator, and I'm like, I don't know where that's coming from. People asked me. I decided to give them a great deal. But okay, so master manipulator, she called me names and used phrases to describe me. And mother's response to me, that I had only ever heard her use to describe murderers, rapists, and people who turn little boys into gun-toting warriors in Central Africa. And so I was totally stunned. I didn't know what was going on. She told me I'd taken a shit in the middle of the circle, and basically that I was the lowest of the low. Hello, hi. And I was completely undone. I did not know which way was up, because to me, I hadn't done anything wrong. I had crossed an invisible line. No one had ever articulated it to me. Apparently that line was, you don't sell anything to your sisters. Okay. It would have been nice to know that before they started asking me to sell stuff to them. So there I was, unable to think straight. And I was in tears for hours. I just felt shredded inside and out, like I was bleeding on the outside. I wanted to die. I mean, it was horrible. And I reached out to all my sisters and I said, I'm returning your money, or I'm canceling your invoices, because this can't happen. Like, I don't want to, I don't want this to be a part of my experience of the sisterhood. Like, I don't want to be the worst, the lowest of the low, like a murderer or a rapist. And And then the next day, so I went to bed really happy that I was allowed to remain part of the circle, the sisterhood. And the next day I woke up and I was pissed. I'm like, this is bullshit. I don't know what bee got into her bonnet, but I was not manipulating anyone. And like, she really should not have taken a third party's account of what happened and then lay it all on me without asking me how it went down for me or the whole context of it. And there was a lot of like made up stuff, and she was projecting her stuff all over me. I mean, this is a woman who I still respect and love. I don't get near her very much, but she has people who love her dearly, as I do, but they don't know that she has this kind of side to her. But the situation was that I was angry at myself for giving my power away. I was angry for letting her tell me that I was wrong. I had never any notion that I would be wrong. You know, if she's going to blame me for doing something bad, at least tell me first, because it seemed like I was actually doing something good. So I asked for a meeting and I got it. And we have this in the priestess school, the mystery school, we have this open-eyed meditation practice, which is really amazing. And I wanted to do it to kind of heal the rift between us. And she said yes. We were on a Zoom call, and I gave my power away again because I really wanted this healing to happen. I wanted to go back to the place where I was at home for the first time in living memory, right? I wanted that so bad. I wanted to be a part of the circle. I wanted to be a part of the school. I wanted to be a part of it. And just, you know, the universe has magical ways of doing things. So happened that her laptop was on a low table. It wasn't like I am looking at you right now, straight on. And so she was actually looking down at me because her laptop was on a low table. And in order to have that eye-to-eye contact, I did not say, by the way, there's no way I can meet your eye if you're looking down. And I don't think she did it on purpose. I really don't. But circumstance had it that and the only way for me to meet her eye was to get down on my knees on the floor and look up at her. So, hooray for sovereignty, right? I just gave it all away right there. And because I wanted to call her on her poverty consciousness, throwing it all over me. So I have a PhD, she has a master's degree, but you know, she was ahead of me in the school, so she was really angry that I was charging pretty much the same that she was charging. And I thought, listen, sweetheart, like, we're not in the same business. I am not trying to do what you do. I'm really good at what I do. And so people love to pay me because I shift things for them radically. And one of the women on the call here was at the Burn Zone book reading where a dear friend and client of mine exited a cult because I was apparently the first one to say, hey, this is a cult. Like, your teachers don't have your best interest at heart. So she, you know, was mad at me. I think she thought I was her competition, and I didn't want to be her competition. And to me, I could never be her competition because she was teaching me things that, yes, I probably could with time and work remember from past lives, because of course I have access to the records. Hi, Brianna. But I was happy to pay her to be teaching me. I should have been on the lookout for that power imbalance, though, and I didn't. So when I gave away my power again that day, and I didn't call her on making things up about me and projecting her things on me, making me her competitor when I didn't want to be, none of this was what I wanted. Thank you. So for the next 18 months, hey there, for the next 18 months, I was topsy-turvy. I was trusting her version of truth about me over my own truth about me, even though I was a professional intuitive. And guess what? That screwed up my business big time, because I didn't know which way was up. So how could I even sell my services? Like, yes, I would do a great job for you. Like, don't look at me because I'm pretty messed up right now. I don't know which way is up. But so it was really, really problematic that I had given my power away to such a degree to this person whom I love. I still love her to this day, you know, through lifetimes. And I won't say that it was bad that we had this interaction. I think it was really good because it got me really clear about a lot of things. It took a year and a half, but it got me really clear about who I am. And by the way, I'm not the snake from Jungle Book singing people to sleep and then squeezing them to death. I'm not. That's what she tried to tell me. So, but it took 18 months of I kept falling into suicidal ideation because I wasn't alive. And so I thought I might as well be dead. I had no motivation. I was completely stuck in this victim mentality because I had lost all my sovereignty. And by the way, my theme for the priestess school for both years I was in it was sovereignty. Hello. So that's wonderful. Brianna says, this is a very timely conversation for me. Glad I tuned in. I'm so happy you're here. So good. If you have more questions later, post them here, or we can talk privately, because I would love to hang out. So I finally quit that group. I let go of my entire community because I did not want to commit suicide. I mean, I did not want to commit suicide. I was pretty okay with the idea of dying. The only thing that kept me alive through all of that was the desire not to fuck up my daughter forever, that she would believe that she had anything to do with me killing myself. That's the only reason I'm still here today, because I was a mess. I didn't know who I was. As an intuitive, that was really awful. Wonderful. Yeah. We are due for a new conversation. So these are the things that are at stake when we. Thank you, Stephanie. This is what's at stake when we give our power away, when we let go of our sovereignty. And that's really what Marry Your Intuition is about. It's about coming into our own truth. Had I been in a place where I could connect with my own sovereignty, I mean, I was so enamored of like what she knew, and so at home in that space and that energy. She creates beautiful temples. I mean, really amazing. And again, I love her to death, almost literally. But I couldn't continue to do it. Hey, Catherine is here. Hello. She's also a Marry Your Intuition this time around. We have lots of Marry Your Intuition peeps on the line. If you have questions or comments, please do share those and I'll address them. I actually have quite a bit more to say. I realize I've been on the call for over, on this live stream for like over half an hour. I totally got off track of like what I was gonna say. So the point that I was making about this mystery school is that I had to give up my sisterhood, and I didn't realize until about 6 months later how much I missed it. And so it's been another several years almost before I created my own divine feminine journey into the mystery with a sisterhood. And the sisterhood of that Bedouin tent on that oasis of divine feminine knowing is like no other sisterhood. No, because I really, some people are church wounded. I was kind of like temple wounded. But it made me really clear that, what not to do, right? So don't judge my knowing as superior to anyone else's knowing, and to really open the space. I'm the guide in that space, but I'm also really being guided because I'm there with my shamanic drum. I'm being taken on the journey too. Sharon says, what you're saying is perfect. Also needed to hear this. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm so glad you joined us because, gosh, this summer is going to be a wild and crazy ride. And I'm really thrilled that we're doing it together in a sisterhood. So in our classes, we come together, and I'm not teaching intuition as I did back in the day with Rock Your Intuition. I mean, I was teaching techniques, and what I do now is I just take people into that space already with the background of, like, we're all doing our home pleasure practices and our divine feminine nourishment invitations. There's never any like, oh, you have to do this. It's all entirely up to the participants. But this is where, just like with any program, the more you pour in, the more pours out into you as nourishment, right? And so the more you get clear in your body, the better things are. Oh, Nisla says, I'm glad I said yes. I'm glad you did too, sweetheart. It's a fabulous group. And there's still 3 spots available. So if this is sounding really yummy, please do reach out. The train will leave the station on Tuesday, because that's when our sisterhood will be complete for this round. And if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm way too busy. And Sharon says, yes, so excited for this journey. Can't wait to see what unfolds. Me too. I don't know. I mean, I have some idea, but it's really odd to not know. Like, yeah, I'm the teacher, but I don't know. So I just listen a lot and let things flow through. And I'm not saying that I'm a hollow bone or a reed, because I am there. Like, I can see it in my mind, and maybe thank you, Sharon, maybe I'm directing it in some way, but I'm also being directed. It's like this it's a co-creative experience, co-creative between me and the tent guides, the sisterhood tent guides, the Marry Your Intuition guides, and co-creative experience between me and the participants, because we're all in the tent together. No one is above anyone else. We're all sharing. This is a deep part of the program, is sharing both on the Facebook page and within the class time. I open the space and women's intuitions fly out. And it's amazing. People who never thought that they were intuitive are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I knew how to do this. Guess what? It's there. It's in us, all of us. As women, because patriarchal culture teaches men to suppress their feelings, but not women so much, a little bit even, but not as much as for men. So we are not told that we can't experience our feelings. Maybe we should stuff them down, but we can at least admit that they're there. And so because we are engaging with our feelings, that means that we can, oh, hey, thank you. That means that we can connect more easily with our intuitions than the general mankind, right? Because we're not told to suppress those quite as much. I'm just going to take a sip of water. So, Marry Your Intuition is for intuitives. It's also for people who are like, I'm not sure I'm all that intuitive. Maybe I've, worked really hard. Like me, you might have been an academic, or maybe you were working in corporate. You have kind of this masculine way of like, okay, results. We have to get this done on time. The just do it mentality, which is a really masculine approach. This is the opposite of just do it. Marry Your Intuition is like, just get still. Just be. And if I have, Michelle Bricker, thank you. If I have one tip, if you're like, oh gosh, not this time, but if I have one tip to give you, it's to slow down. It's to make time to get still every single day as often as you can. Maybe it's just for 5 seconds, but intuition doesn't land in busyness. It does not. And so when we create space for ourselves, this spaciousness where we can be still, that's when we can get our intuitive messages. That's when our body can say, hey, this is a good thing, or hey, this is really not good, or especially, this is unsafe, run now. And so getting still is the key. I have a lot more things to say in the program, but getting stillness and space in your heart and body so that you can allow these intuitive messages to rise up into your awareness, that's the key. That's the key. So again, I'm talking about Marry Your Intuition. This is a 5-week program. It's like 10 weeks kind of accordioned into 5 weeks. We meet twice a week. There are multiple emails weekly to help hold the container tightly, but also to really suggest, they're invitations. They're not suggestions. There's never a you have to do this. Whatever you enjoy doing, I suggest people try all the things the first week that I suggest as an invitation, this divine feminine nourishment invitation. I suggest you try those to figure out what you like and what you don't like. And what you don't like, you don't keep. But what you do like, do it again and again to help bring you to stillness, to help bring you to this place of wisdom so that your body is completely transparent and you can tell when messages are coming up immediately. They don't have to rise very far. You're like, oh, wait, I've got, okay, let me just stop for a sec, check in. All right, go here, not here. And that's really the beauty of marrying your intuition. It's about owning your truth and owning your path and claiming your wings, right? I had a couple other things to say, just catching back up about my cautionary tale as an intuitive to like let someone else tell me who I was. That was a bad idea. I mean, ultimately it turned out because I needed to learn that lesson. Clearly needed to learn that lesson. And it was really painful. Really, I mean, I was on the brink of killing myself for 1.5 years. It was insane, totally nuts. I also wanted to say that if you feel like you're really intuitive and you're thinking, oh, maybe I don't need this class, there is, just like I said earlier, like I didn't realize I needed this either. I thought I was teaching it, but I was run through that divine feminine mystery mill. It was important for me to go through it. And it shifted me in all sorts of really wonderful ways. Thank you. There are deep layers, you know. As a professional intuitive, I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm able to reach places now that I couldn't reach before. And in fact, back in 2014, I opened my Oracle Circle. It's now closed. It closed at the end of 2016. It was a great, several of you were in it. It was a great thing. And I did an initial channeling when I opened it up, and it said one of the things to expect from being in the Oracle Circle was that your Oracle chops would expand. And I was like, oh yeah, everyone's Oracle chops will expand. I was holding myself outside of that possibility because I thought, you know, I was at the apex of, I could go anywhere in the Akashic Records I wanted to go, right? So I felt like I was good. I've done everything. I'm totally at the capacity that there is. Within 5 or 6 months, I was channeling beyond the Akashic records, just way beyond the Akashic records. I mean, I was pulling in stuff from like, woo, the corners of the cosmos. It was crazy. And then I was on a call, like a tribe call, a sisterhood call, and someone reminded me of the thing, that thing about everyone's chops would expand. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that I was holding myself outside of that, especially now that I see that I just blew the back wall off the records and into all that is, and I'm there now. That's where I operate. So yeah, that was some intuitive hubris that I was experiencing before. And fortunately, I'm humble enough to recognize when I was wrong. I was wrong to have experienced that hubris. But this class shifts people. It's a portal. So many miracles were created in that first class and the first round. Also, if you're thinking like, I should do it later because I'm super busy right now. I've had several people say, oh, I've got a lot of things coming up for me personally. And thanks, Stephanie. To me, it's like, oh, well, you of all people need to be in this program right now. Because if you're feeling busy, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you feel like you don't have a single minute for yourself, guess what? You have forgotten the wisdom of putting your own oxygen mask on first, especially for women, because we're really connected. This is one of the things about women, because we're connected to our emotions, we're also connected to other people at a really profound level, especially our children or our primary partners or our friends or maybe our parents or siblings or our colleagues at work. And so we're constantly putting other people in front of us in line for getting our attention or getting fed emotionally or even physically fed, but emotionally fed, socially fed, right? We're constantly putting other people in front, like, okay, we'll take care of you first. And then at the end of the day, we're like, oh yeah, now it would be my turn, but I'm too tired. I have to go to bed right now. And so we never get that. Marry Your Intuition is about saying, hey, I'm just inviting you to stop. Stop putting yourself last. Because when mama's happy, everybody's happy. This is one thing we forget all the time. When mama's happy, everybody's happy. So why are we not letting ourselves get happy? Why are we feeding everybody else first? That oxygen mask thing is really true. Like if you're a parent and you have a small child next to you in the airplane and you spend a lot of time kind of trying to get that mask on the child, and then you pass out and die, you're not going to be doing any good for that child, right? It's almost maybe too bad that the child survived if the parents are not there to, accompany it through life. Same for you, for all of us, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've done this to myself where I just was like, no, I have to do this and I have to take care of this and then I have to do that and I have to do that. And then I make myself sick and I can't do anything for anyone. How many of you have done that? Like you just are like taking care of everybody else and you're like, oh man, now I can't take care of them and I can't take care of me, but I do have to slow down. A lot of my clients will break legs because they're just going too fast and their bodies are like, stop now, stop. And it's important. Oh, Charlene is here. And Marie too, I saw you there earlier. So if you are thinking like, oh, I don't have time for this because I'm overwhelmed or busy, I've got a lot of things coming up in my personal life, this next month is probably going to be a really intense time, just energetically. Astrologically, things are big. Mars is coming into opposition with the whole cluster in Capricorn. Mars is in Cancer now. And starting tomorrow, this whole opposition is exact. So Mars, the fly off the handle, aggressive energy planet, is in Cancer. It's interesting, like the warrior planet is, taking off his weapons and tying on an apron in its place, but not very comfortable there, actually. In fact, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and so it's at its detriment. Mars does not like to be in Capricorn, but it's facing off with the Saturn and Pluto in the south node. It's right on the north node, and right now Mars is, and for the next time period. And this is uncomfortable. So there might be already, even before we hit eclipse season in a week, 9 days, even before we hit eclipse season officially and the solstice, there's likely to be a lot of aggressive behavior. Mars opposite Pluto, I mean, these are the traditional and the modern rulers of Scorpio. And so like deep kind of resentment or thing Scorpio does. Scorpio is also the mystery. Scorpio is also the underground. Scorpio is also everything that once was sacred and now is taboo. Scorpio is an amazing sign, very intense. So when you have the traditional ruler of Scorpio facing off against the modern ruler of Scorpio, and Mars is already unhappy because he doesn't like to be in Cancer, that can create already a lot of emotions. So for me, like being in a space of sisterhood where we can really be real and vulnerable about what's going on, or even just vulnerable with ourselves, like in our journals or in our meditations or whatever it happens to be, that's how we make it through without too many stubbed toes and scuffed knees. That's how we make it through these really intense times. And to me, Mary, your intuition is all about creating our own internal winches to pull the patriarchy down, because it's about women's empowerment. When we get clear with our bodies, when our body signals rise up and tell us right away, like this is wrong or this is right, and so we can just decide in the moment really clearly and surely, thank you, that's when the magic happens. And when we do it in a group, wow. I mean, the sisterhood in our last version of Marry Your Intuition was just amazing. And these are small. Like, I'm committed to keeping it under 12 women. So I don't have room for 20 in my tent. So it's a small group. It's very, very intimate. It's intimate with ourselves. We get intimate with ourselves, but also we can be as intimate as we want with the others. And, you're all on Facebook. I had one woman last time who really just, she's like, maybe I could come back to Facebook. And then she was like, no, I can't. And so I'm like, that's fine. So I just shared all the news with her via text. But being on Facebook doesn't appear to be a problem for you, since that's where you are right now. But Marry Your Intuition is really, if you've ever wanted to get clear with yourself about a whole host of issues, the tools that you give yourself, really it's you giving them to yourself in this program, you use those your whole life. And it's like a soul reunion sisterhood. That's truly what it is in there. It's like some people knew each other, other people did not, but everyone just was like, wow, yeah, I know every one of these women in this tent for lifetimes. Isn't that awesome? By the way, it's not an actual tent. The tent, when we go into the tent, the sisterhood tent, and every time we go in, I welcome each sister with a special welcome. And every time we go in, it's like entering into a portal. And what we do in the tent sort of occupies this extraplanetary dimension. And so there's a lot of magic going on in there, like immaterial things that get moved around. Pretty awesome. Like true miracles were created in 5 weeks last time. I mean, it was phenomenal. Also, the other thing about this isn't a real tent is that just in the last week, I got the hit that it needs to be a real tent. So I think I'll be doing a live retreat for the Friday the 13th of September here in Georgia, maybe somewhere else, I'm not sure yet. But I think it's going to be a Marry Your Intuition retreat. And it'll be open to people who have done Marry Your Intuition already, or who want to do it on the heels of the retreat. So that's that. I want to go back and read what Brianna says. She says, I've been really persistent with myself on this lately, getting slow and centered and grounded before acting. Good for you. I'm in the process of embracing my intuition over all else again, and I definitely face some self-doubt, especially when what feels right to me doesn't meet with the guidance I'm getting from others. It can be a foggy place to walk through. I hear you. I mean, you heard what I just said. Like, I was giving my power away left and right because I thought I knew less, but I didn't. I just thought I did. So that was a problem for me. What else was I going to say? Oh, I did want to talk about a friend of mine, Christine Backus, who's an astrologer. She was talking about the 11th house and Aquarius. I happen to be Aquarius myself. She was talking about the 11th house in Aquarius. And she said, sovereignty, I'm reading a note here, sovereignty and freedom in the context of belonging was what she had been kind of thinking about recently for the 11th house, which is associated with Aquarius and ruled traditionally by Saturn, the planet in charge of sovereignty. And in modern times, it's ruled by Uranus, which is the planet of freedom and rebellion. So this whole idea of sovereignty and freedom in the context of belonging. And to me, that really just encapsulates what Marry Your Intuition is. It's about creating your own freedom within your sovereignty and within this group of amazing sisters. That's really wonderful. So we start on Tuesday. Again, it's a 5-week class, but it's really a 10-week program, but it's kind of concentrated. And it's concentrated to be able to really have this tight container. Back in the day when I was teaching Rock Your Intuition, I was originally a 6-week class. No, it was originally a 5-week class, and then I stretched it out to 6 weeks and then divided it in half. So we did 21 days of really intense work with emails every single day. And that made all the difference. Hi, Lorna. Aloha to you. That made all the difference of really because people would come to class, let's say on Wednesday, and they'd be super excited about their intuitions. And then Thursday, maybe they would also be excited, but they would forget on Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday. And maybe Tuesday, they'd be like, oh yeah, class tomorrow, let's see. And get back into it, but then they would lose the thread again for 5 days in a row. So I thought we need to just make this a tighter container, and it worked brilliantly. Again, so if you took Rock Your Intuition and you're thinking, well, do I have anything to learn from Marry Your Intuition? It is totally different. Mostly in the frequency, because the Rock Your Intuition was all about mental, kind of quick speed, etc. This is all about calming down out of your head into your body, slowing down, getting still, really feeling what's there and what is coming up. And so that's the beauty of Marry Your Intuition. It's just everyone really understood herself by the end so much more than she did at the beginning, including me. I'm not holding myself separate from the group anymore because that would be silly. Anyway, if you have questions or you want to chat about this or anything else, please do reach out. I have time to talk over the next few days. We start on Tuesday. So I hope, we had our initial meeting last Thursday, but we haven't entered the tent yet. We're going to be entering the tent. Class time is at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 p.m. in the UK and 1 p.m. on the West Coast. If you can't make it live to most of the meetings, that's okay. This is energy work, and energy work is not bound by space or time. However, I think it feels better to all of us when the sisters are all present. I mean, I'll call everyone into the tent. No one will be left behind ever. But I think for the individual who, is trying to get there and comes late, for example, that's okay. Come when you can. You will have been there the whole time. No problem. Lorna says, I agree, consecutive immersion is better for spirit work and up-leveling. Yes, thank you. That was a good way to say that. Because a tight container is really what's needed for this kind of massive internal shift. And it starts down below. It starts under the earth. If the earth is like your consciousness or your body, right, it starts underneath and it feels really subtle, and then it like moves more and more and more as it gets more to the surface. And that's what's on offer in this program. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, final call for questions. Let's see, I have some time tomorrow on Monday. Maybe we can find a time to connect. Would love to hear more about this. Thank you, Brianna. I'd love to talk to you too. I'll reach out in a PM. Okay. Wonderful. Any other questions or comments? I'm happy to hear them. Okay. Thank you all. Remember, when you know your path and you know your truth, you own your wings and you're unstoppable. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Thank you.